are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes beyond the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, most times we go deep. I'm your host, David Cameo, and I'm joined by Cosmomon09, Rachel Burt, Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, and Bridget, ko-fi.com/PunkyBrewster. That's PUNKYBRUISETER. And a special guest, Shauna
S_mayonnaise
on Instagram, preferably. If you're wondering, oh, why is this lady here? Why is this silly little lady here? Well, I'll tell you why. A few months back, we had a charity for our dearly departed friend, Robin Overton. We were hoping to raise enough money and we did raise enough money for his medical expenses while he was treating his cancer. You don't want to have to leave this world and place that kind of burden on your loved ones to have to pay back. And I think we did a fairly good job of trying to help him out while he was still here and with us. The result of which, Shauna actually won one of the prizes, which was to be here with us, getting the Survivors tier treatment, breaking down an episode with us. And it happens to be the season, perhaps series, finale of The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, titled The Last Time. Because it's the last time we'll ever see them again? No, what? Maybe?
Because it's the last time I'm going to watch this show.
Anyway.
Strongly disagree.
I managed to sneak in 2 new designs that we released after the 2 previous designs, the previous ones of which were the Ones Who Squawk logo design and the Ones Who Squawk art design. Technically, it's one design, and it has all our host names. It's Bridget and Dave and Rachel and Sharon D. It's one new design, 2 different color sets, one with black font, one with white font, with white and dark backgrounds with our host names on it, a la the Beatles t-shirt with the ampersands at the end until the period. You'll see it. It's showing up on the screen right now, probably. And for those of you on the audio-only podcast, head over to squawkingdead.com, click the main menu, choose merch. It's right there at the top. The thing that we want to get out of the way is the contentious ending. Of the folks who had a problem with the ending, even they derived a certain level of satisfaction from it. And yet, for people like me, there was just something off.
They should have made it a longer episode, a half an hour longer at least. Felt rushed. They should have had Judith as the last one that spoke to Rick. I don't think it should have been RJ because it was super emotional with Judith, and then it was kind of a letdown with RJ. And then it went back to being good because Judith started talking again. Not that I don't love RJ, but he's not our little ass kicker. We've loved Judith since before she was born.
We don't know him the same way.
Yeah, it's not fair to RJ. It's kind of like Abraham's death where it just didn't give it a kick that it should have because somebody else took over the spotlight.
Right, it was like tagged on.
Yes.
It's like an act you can't follow.
Yeah, you had to do it. But him saying, I believed it would happen was not the same impact that it would have been. Even just what Judith said to her dad. Seeing Judith's leg excited me more than RJ speaking.
When Michonne radio was on the walkie. Gotcha.
When you hear Shoto and Daito. Yeah, I was like, oh, tears. But not, it was sad.
Let's hit on this one specific thing first because I need to front load something that needs to be mentioned every now and again with a disclaimer. I am okay with child actors. I've said this before when it came to Baby Mo and Finch. And well, Finch we actually all happen to really, really like. He's like Gavin the guy on Instagram, except for Anthony Azor. I don't know what it is.
We're going to see him soon, Dave.
No, it's okay.
He's very young.
Yes,
We've said this before. I jokingly have a bone to pick with the performance. I said this in the tower when in that one fabled meeting with Father Gabriel trying to calm him down. He just was smiling throughout the whole scene. Here's the thing. I don't have a problem with him per se or his acting per se. I do have a problem with the people in charge because to be perfectly frank, you're right. He is a child actor. Some people just have the natural talent to do the things that they need to do on screen. And some people, with the help of an acting coach, which is what kids should have, need a little direction. And like anything, you know how some people say about fear, oh, we'll lay this all out in the feet of Ian Goldberg and Andrew Chambliss. That's not fair. There's the network, there's the director, there's the showrunners, there's the actors themselves, there's the people behind the camera, there's the people in the booths. There's a lot of people responsible for a given performance. That being said, I didn't like it either. You hit it spot on, Shauna.
He would have at least been like, oh, RJ got to see his dad finally, not like, I believed.
Let's go to Bridget, because I knew that was going to come.
I disagree with that. It was extremely impactful for Tim to finally meet his father. So I think that was fine.
It's supposed to be impactful.
Even if he's not giving the performance of a lifetime, Andrew was giving a solid performance. He's a kid. I'm not going to expect the best work out of this kid. He's young.
The dialogue was dumb.
It was a little clunky.
Yeah.
I actually find that the dialogue was actually fine.
I 100% agree with Shauna. I think RJ should have gotten all his lines out and then left the emotional bits to Judith, because like Bridget said, we have more of an emotional connection with Judith. When the radio was sitting there and we saw nothing but her boot and her pant leg, I felt the feels.
And the way she got up really quickly too.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And I
pretty cool.
wanted the introduction between RJ and Rick to go a certain way. Obviously, we don't always get what we want. Maybe I set myself up for disappointment a little bit,
Same.
wanting something and then not getting it. You guys, I don't know how to, I want to be mean.
It's kind of
what I
like Dave
want.
said, though. It's not his fault. He's just a kid. There are people
Yeah.
around him who could have
Mhm.
helped him if there is blame to lay.
Well, share the blame.
Right.
On the
It's not
community
just him.
that should have supported him. I think my biggest issue was facial expression.
Thank you.
I wrote that.
Mhm.
I'm going to say again, he is very young. He has not developed a skill yet where acting with your face is a huge part of what he does right now. And I totally get
especially
that.
Look at his age and look
Yeah.
at what just happened in formative years of his life. This is a really big issue right now
Yeah.
in early education. Children now have no concept of what
Mhm.
facial expressions mean because half
They were
of your face
covered.
has been
Yes.
covered.
That's
The
true.
only facial
Very
expressions
true.
you learned were from your parents.
I didn't think this would
who
go there.
were so traumatic and so depressed, a lot of them, and so
Yeah.
anxious about losing their jobs or whatever else was happening, not being able to find toilet paper, everything, that they were at like a 10 all of the time.
You're also comparing him kind of to Kaylee, who is a spectacular young actress who held her own against JDM at a young age.
Yeah.
She is a prodigy. You can't expect everyone to be as good as she is.
I'm looking at Chandler too, though. I feel like she's a little more
Yeah.
like Gracie. Gracie's kind of average in comparison, and I think that's more what Anthony's like.
You see her for 2 minutes every other
Right.
episode.
Her
Mhm.
role
Exactly.
doesn't have the weight.
But that's kind of what RJ has had too, though.
Right. There's no personality.
That's what I was going to say. How could this child actor even develop a character for himself when he's been given next to no dialogue? This kid has had a handful of lines. We've
You're
hardly
able to
even
show him
heard
all
him
the
speak.
flashbacks.
Like you said, he doesn't have very many scenes.
Mhm.
So how could he build a character out of nothing? Even if he was a better
Yeah.
actor, you know?
Mhm.
Well, one of the things that bothered me, though, is he knew it was going to happen, but he looked surprised when he saw Rick.
See, that whole exchange was hokey. Come on.
So I'm going to pretend I'm a director, let's just say. And this feels wrong to do because I'm not. And we're all doing Monday morning quarterbacking. And listen, it's a hard thing to develop a show these days, but also all days. And it's a collaborative effort that when it's in sync and it works really well. And we're lucky to have these things. That being said, sometimes less is more. And we've said this before on the show. If something you're trying to do is not working, don't do it.
I think something was cut out of this end scene too.
They had like an alternate ending where they like had a montage and it was like supposed to be like them picnicking and whatnot. The last 5 minutes of it, all this stuff
Mhm.
happened and it was all just
Yeah.
compacted into one thing.
Let's just say this. If they would have kept that montage and still had the dialogue over it and not had this sort of
Mhm.
awkward, tense, mixed.
That could have been
It should have
good.
been
Yeah,
more
it
tense
could
and
have been
mixed
much prettier.
and complicated, but
Yeah.
it was just not happening. I had one specific technical detail as it pertained to the scene. First of all, this whole scene was filmed on a soundstage. You could
Mhm.
tell there was something phony.
When you
Yeah.
see the pictures behind the scenes, you can see the blue screen behind them.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
that explains a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Some of that issue is switching to digital. Had this been filmed on film, it wouldn't have been as obvious. When you shoot it on digital and then it is projected in HD into your home, 4K, it's so easy to tell when something is a soundstage. It just looks like it. As soon as it's on, you're like, ooh. You can tell.
That's a problem in post-production too, though, because anything you do in film, you can easily sort of color correct, add filters, and you can get around that problem.
Mm.
Even the thing that you're actually superimposing behind the blue screen, that thing itself can be put up in such a manner that you can't tell. But even more technical than that, let me give you a comparison. And I don't know what this is. From what you're talking about with the walkie and seeing Judith behind on the stoop, let's say, shots like that, brilliant. Beale, the head-on shot of him starting his echelon briefing, that was great. Even the whole echelon briefing kind of ends with a similar kind of shot.
Oh,
Head
the one
on
where
with
his
Beale.
hand is on the sword.
And then it's like, look into my eyes, Grimes. He's seeing his eyes. He knows what's going to happen because he looks into Rick's eyes, and we get to see that. Great shot, right? Okay, this is my problem with the end scene. Not predominantly. We got that out of our system in the kindest, humane way possible. The problem I had was they needed to hone in on the visual storytelling of that moment in a filmic way that just was not happening. The shots were too wide. There's too much background, and you can make that more intentional, but it just felt flat. It felt like somebody was on an iPhone and just capturing the moment from different
I'm wondering if it looked
iPhone
a lot
camera
better
angles.
though, and that it got tampered with so much that this was the end result that you get.
You know, I was thinking that.
Over editing is a thing, Dave.
No. I agree. In fact, I think we can all agree that this moment, should you choose to put it in the first place, which is an argument, everybody is going to feel the weight of this moment of what they're trying to do. And I'm not saying fans are impossible to please when it comes to stuff like this. The thing that everybody was talking about from the first episode, they've got to reunite. And I'm like thinking to myself, do they?
They didn't have to.
They didn't have to.
They didn't have to add this at all.
Everybody said it though. Everybody, not us, but maybe
Not
some of
us,
us.
yeah.
I don't know.
The loudest people who don't even get me started on that, because
The same ones that brought Madison back.
No.
No, not
At least
even
they
remotely.
explained that one.
One of the things I was most disappointed in, there was no, oh shoot moment, no twist. Because remember, we talked about Rick going to the other side. It was flat.
It felt like there weren't even any stakes, even though there sort of were, but they didn't feel like stakes.
No, there was too much plot armor, which is where my main complaint comes in.
I did not think that.
At the end, instead of having them all reunite, which was hokey and blah, why didn't they do something interesting with a twist? I'm just speaking for me. When Rick was in danger with the walkers and whatnot, I was like, oh shit, they're going to kill Rick off. This is awesome. What a twist. But no, he has his super death stink that he uses a la Morgan to get out from under the pile of walkers that's on top of him, blow them up with a grenade and come out without a scratch.
Let me tell you what I wrote in my notes. Frag explodes and SE version of Glenn's dumpster dive ensues.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
That would have been
Example.
such a better ending. The show's lost its edge.
By the way, on the heels of her saying, love never dies, and then boom.
Yeah, I
Yeah, it
expected
was
guess
a
it just
peak
did.
moment. If you
I
had
did.
left it,
I didn't feel like he was going to die for 1 second. It didn't occur to me, just like to
I
Charity's
was like,
point.
oh my God, that's going to be awesome. What a twist. They're going to kill Rick off. Oh! And then they didn't. It was like,
But did you feel like that was going to happen?
yeah.
I did not. Nope. No way.
Didn't
Not
they
gonna come this
film
far.
alternate endings though? Could have that possibly been one of them? And if they put it in like a test theater kind of thing, and they say, no, don't do that.
See, you know what? I kind of agree with you, Charity and Shauna. That's the fickle thing about fans. After all this investment, you can't do it. They've gone too far.
They
They've
killed
said
off
too many
Carl,
things.
so who are they gonna kill?
What made this show so edgy at the beginning was they were willing to kill off anybody. And now it's not.
You could do a lot of things.
They didn't have to kill Rick, but they could have separated them again or something. I felt the absence of that oh snap moment.
I think they made it a little too much love story.
I agree with that
You
too.
know,
And I'm usually
can
down
agree.
with love stories, but it did
I am
not fit in
too.
this.
We needed to have the love story, but it needed to be the love story of the show, not the love story of Rick and Michonne only.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
we did get that Father Gabriel and connection sort of thing.
Well, yeah, there was that love story as well, which I'm sorry, you're all wrong. She loves him, he loves her. Done.
Hey, high five. Shoot. Boom.
Dead City was edgy. There was grit. This show did not have that. Daryl Dixon was beautiful, and it was deep, and it had emotions. I felt nothing in this show but hate.
Well, she
I
says this
hated
show.
this show.
This
I
is where
loved
we
it.
end.
I
This is
loved
where we
the
part
show,
ways.
but
I hated the whole thing. In the main show at the beginning, part of the reason the show was so good, they were just regular people who were trying to survive, but now they're all superheroes. How do they survive these things? How did Michonne
true.
get up that tree so fast? Why didn't Rick just pick him up and fly him back to Alexandria like Superman? It's ridiculous. It's not realistic. And I know we're watching a show of zombies. That was the whole point of the show. It was based
most
in
part, sure.
reality.
I'm not saying that I feel the same way. I suspend a lot more disbelief than you do. We all know this. But some of the things that I spotted, that you spotted as well, with the tree. In the shot with the tree with the walker, where the soldier is going to put down the walker isn't even the same tree she climbed up, which there's just no way.
No
That
continuity.
soldier would. But again, doesn't bother me. That's what the show wanted to convey. That's a geography problem. That's also it's a filming problem.
I'm going to lay the majority of the blame on the writing of this show.
I wanted to touch on the end just a little bit because one of the things that one of you said, Rachel, was you, was it's not what I would have done or wanted.
The meeting between RJ and Rick, I wanted it to go a specific way.
A specific way, right? So
Yeah.
I'm going to meld yours and Sharon's opinions together because I felt the same way in a sense. The focus on the love story, even though that's what they said it would be. So, okay.
Connor.
So I'm melding three things together because, listen, what I would have wanted is more of a grandiose narrative that's complex and takes twisties, misdirection, and subverting expectations. Because I, too, was thinking they could do a lot more with this. And they are. The things like embeds are still left on the table. They're national, they're global. Can the CR at this point wrangle the machinations of the CRM completely?
Well, I know they said that, the soldiers could be turned easily. I'm sorry, you just killed their commander and wiped out probably a whole lot of their friends. I don't think you're going to be able to that easily turn all of the soldiers to the side of the CR.
Well, those are the upper echelon. The summit was full of the frontliners and the command. They're not in the
They
same
also
caliber.
talked about Rick was already a story there. Beale talks about it. That's why he thinks that he's the future, cutting off his own arm to get away. Just like he was a story in Alexandria. So that part I can believe.
This is a good entry point. No, you're right. This is a good entry point to Jadis's letter, her contingency plan. But before I say that, not only that, the whole point was that the summit contained the upper echelon, hence the echelon briefing. This was command and frontliners.
Doesn't mean that you didn't know those people that got boosted up into the upper echelon. You could be friends with those people and they just killed them all.
Yeah, but you could have also just found out that your kids were going to be the ones that were going to be killed.
I do want to say that Terry O'Quinn was criminally underused in this series.
We expected a little bit more.
Yeah.
Sure.
As I was watching it and they were talking about the gas and all that, and I was like, what would have been really cool if they had made it the kids from World Beyond who blew it up.
They got a little help from their friends.
What about them being in Portland? They'd already be in Portland, right? They should have warned Portland that the CRM was out to get them. So why would Portland be falling for this crap? Because the kids from the World Beyond should already be there.
It's the same thing with the saviors. You have to pretend to go along with it in order for you to have enough time to be able to develop your own plan.
Right, and there was not enough time.
Well, they've had
With
like
them.
3
Yeah.
years. It's like 3
Were a lot
years.
younger than that too.
No, only one,
No.
if anything. Not even.
Well, World Beyond was 10 years in. Aren't we like 12, 13 years in now?
11.
Well, then how is that Carol calling Rick and saying Rick is back and Daryl?
Daryl
We
Dixon.
don't know
is
that that's what he's. That's
Daryl
what she
Dixon.
said.
No, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Let me dovetail
No,
from what
13 years.
Shauna was saying about the story about Beale. Rick flipped that story. He becomes this legend in the CR if they're going to publish his name whatsoever. But this is a perfect segue to what Anne Stokes wrote in her contingency plan, which I managed to get the overwhelming majority of her report. And this is how it goes. By the way, I'm going to be paraphrasing a little bit because some of the words have been cut off at the beginning and end of sentences, but to whom it may concern, if you're reading this, it means that I, Warrant Officer Jada Stokes, blah, 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 met my demise, something like that. I have left this letter to reveal crucial information, blah, 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 to provide you with the knowledge necessary to blah, blah, blah. Information will be used to maintain the stability of the CRM, probably. The topic is my arrangement with Rick Grimes. During my time, blah, 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 in my community, I secretly brokered a deal with the collector. This is a lieutenant something Elsick. I traded the injured Rick Grimes, who I portrayed as a friend, someone I didn't know well but had crossed in the wilderness and had saved. An A, not a B. And I have a much deeper relationship than I'd previously portrayed. Our community had battled his in an alliance with a third hostile community that had blah, 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 consolidating power in the area. Rick led his own alliance of communities to defeat us and further paved the way for peace between all parties concerned. He has demonstrated himself to be an A, and his community, Alexandria Safe Zone, has a number of A's living within its walls. Further, Rick's wife, Michonne, she keeps saying Rick's wife, Michonne, is the individual known as Dana Bethune. She had searched for Rick, not knowing he was aboard. She had shot down his helicopter. Blah, blah, blah. Mission 3263827, killing Lieutenant Colonel Donald Okafor. The topic is CRM's vulnerability. My emissions have created a critical vulnerability for the Civic Republic. I firmly believe that Alexandria, Rick, and Michonne must be destroyed to ensure the CRM's continued dominance. Rick and Michonne will return to the Alexandria safe zone, warn his people of this place. I'm again paraphrasing. And that information could potentially spread to other blah, blah, blah. Location security is one of the paramount tenets of CRM operations, and blah, 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 compromise our force from the start of my arrival in the Civic Republic. The topic is Alexandria, Rick, and Michonne. It is essential to understand the nature of the danger present. Rick Grimes is a natural-born leader who has managed to, blah, 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 survivors under a single banner. His strategic abilities and strong, blah, 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 makes him a formidable opponent. Michonne, Rick's wife, again, is a highly, blah, blah, blah. Her unwavering loyalty to Rick and her relentless determination make her an equally dangerous adversary. Keep in mind, Michonne's reading this. The Alexandria Safe Zone, the community they have built, is well organized and resourceful, with a proven track record of overcoming threats, both human and undead. Now, the topic is the necessity of their destruction should be, blah, 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 to secure the CRM's position and prevent our vulnerability from being exposed. It is crucial to eliminate Alexandria, Rick, and Michonne. Their survival and potential discovery of our organization's weaknesses could pose a grave threat to our operations and long-term objectives. The success of our mission depends on the eradication of these their community.
Individuals.
And their community. That's it. Because I imagine the rest of the pages are all drawings too, by the way, laying out the communities and the facilities and structures.
If they're supposed to be so secretive and reclusive or whatever, why is their helicopter pilot making deals with random trash ladies?
I guess they have a standing relationship because the Heaps did have a heliport, for starters. So they were regularly dropping off goods for her in exchange for services, meaning A's or B's that they could take back to the Civic Republic. And so this is one big deal that she was making. Well, the biggest deal, the valued can of tuna, Rick Grimes.
You think Winslow was a way for her to tell if you were an A or B?
Yeah, if you fought back.
Mhm.
Well, you
Like a
notice that like when
test.
she was tying down Negan's arm, it wasn't tied all that well to see if he'd give up. This
Want to
is
see
in
if he
season
can do
8.
something else. Lay with him after.
I'd
Turn
buy
that
that for
butter.
$1. Anyway.
She didn't wear her apron. He likes the masks better.
I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I love Mikey. I love everybody involved with the show. This show just really made me angry. Just a total departure from what made the show great in the original seasons.
You can make that commentary broadly on all the spinoffs. Anything basically past season 9, maybe, because they killed Jesus, which is a huge shock to me. And then after that, it's like nobody died. Almost, really.
Rosita.
Nobody that we cared about. But see, and then she died peacefully in her own bed. And there's so many things where they lowered the temperature on the stakes across the board.
Right.
So it is a broader commentary. But to your point, I'm not saying this episode was sloppy at all. What I will say is that something in the construction of this particular episode, because we can roll the tape. I have nothing but great things to say of each and every single episode up until this point. So I think I know what they were trying to do. I'll just say this. The end scene for me, it shouldn't have felt like fan service, pure fan service, but it was. I'm going to admit it. I don't hate it. I just didn't like it. But the problem with not liking this particular scene is that it makes it so that you look back on the rest of the episode like this and you're like, oh man, it kind of ruined it a little bit. I was all tense and nervous at certain points. I liked certain fight scenes. I like some of the humor in this episode too. What's in the box? And Rick going, he's exhaling like, it's a long story, but guess who? It's Beale. But it makes you look back and then you're like, scheisse.
I thought Thorne had her suspicions about Michonne already. I don't understand how she didn't question Rick when he came back. You've had all these chances to escape, but here you came back. He hadn't gotten the briefing yet. He didn't know what was the difference.
He wanted that briefing. That's why he came back. He wanted it so badly. He was like, how do I save the world? I just survived a plane crash. I don't want to have to survive plane crashes, helicopter crashes
I just survived
anymore.
a nuclear-sized bomb by hiding under a tarp.
Let's address that for a hot second. I'm fine with it because of these massive steel cargo containers that are in between him and the blast as they duck in from the blast radius behind the length side of the steel containers. The whole water on top of tarp, that's actually a method for you in your home to try to escape flames. And so it's also a good filter for when it comes to the gas,
and
which is
smoke
the bigger threat.
inhalation. I think it was more the cargo containers that sort of blocked most of the blast.
No.
After that, it was the gases that they were in danger of, which
Yes.
the tarp covered in water, that would have
Well,
helped
in
with
the
that.
scene with Nat, though, people just being touched by the gas was causing problems as well. But Michonne's head, the top of her head is exposed. Thorne's head is exposed up here. Their skin
There's no gas
touched,
mask.
and they're getting hit by
They just have cloth.
a wet cloth on their face.
There's nothing
Well,
protecting
wet
them.
cloth. The whole thing with chlorine gas is it's an inhalant. It's going to affect your mucous membranes, but it has to be inhaled into your lungs and out this way for it to really affect her.
I agree with you, and I understand that. But what I'm saying to you is when you watch the first scene of that happening with Nat's group, when that's happening, just their skin is melting away as well, though. It's not their mucous membranes only. And
That's because
why
they had
they're-
inhaled it, though.
Yeah.
No, because the one guy that was out there with him, when he got up as a walker, he had his face was all melted and
Yes.
gross, and that wasn't from inhaling it. Because
That's from the
then,
mucous
because
membranes.
then, no, it was like his face was peeling and
No,
like rotted away. It was
as
like
it hit it,
burned.
it rotted away. Yeah.
So,
It was
and
causing
if
burns,
that,
which was a great scene for that. But it didn't tell the same story in this scene then, I don't think.
No, I think it was the mucous membranes though. It was secreting so much mucus from the inhaling and just coming out of the eyes and nose and mouth and probably even throwing up too.
We can agree to disagree.
Yeah. No, here's why you're wrong. Running joke. It's fine. It's fine.
What's
Okay.
up?
Okay.
Tell him, Dave.
tell him, Steve, Dave.
I said this offline and it needs to be said online. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are being not only fair in your criticisms, but judicious. And it deserves to be said that I'm glad that we all think a different thing because it makes it so much more interesting. And that we're all trying to be really careful and disclaiming. And even though we have strong feelings, because we invest in a lot in these shows, we still appreciate the fact that it takes a lot for people to bring something like this together to give to us in the first place, to have and to try to enjoy. And I think even with my criticisms of this episode, if I had to rank this episode, yes, it is the weakest episode. I'm glad I got it. It's like what my wife said about, we watched Poor Things over the weekend, the movie with Emma Stone.
Emma Stone.
Mhm.
And
Is it good?
Mark Ruffalo. Here's how she put it. And I
I've
100%
heard
agree.
bad things.
But I'm more
Mm.
of a twisted person, and so is Rachel. I'm just going to throw her in there. And so is Bridget.
Yeah.
In saying this, she
You're
said,
not wrong.
I was traumatized by it, but I'm glad I saw it.
Okay.
That's how I felt about Saving Private Ryan.
It's a different kind of traumatized. I'll tell you that much. I was a little bit too, by the way, for Saving Private, but it's way different. It's asking a lot of you in the beginning, and all of a sudden you find yourself accepting what's being given to you. It's a strange thing. You're like, this is so off-putting. Everything about this screams dissonance. Your brain does not want to enjoy what you're watching. And then all of a sudden, gradually, you're like, how am I enjoying this right now? How am I liking? I'm also a strange person. You've met me.
I liked the little shout out to World Beyond. He said Elton's mom wrote in the book
What specifically, though?
that we'll be dead in 15 years.
Yes,
Endlings.
the Endlings
Yeah.
conversation in episode 2 of the first season.
I liked the subway bunny on the floor.
Mhm.
I dug that.
I have a whole link that we will link to. This was connected to when we were talking about Tales. We were talking about the Alpha episode. Is it just D?
It was just D.
It was
It's just
Yeah.
D. We saw the bunny that Lydia was holding. And then we linked to all the times we saw the bunny, not only in the set of Talking Dead, but like you said, in Asheron parts
Mhm.
1 and
Yeah,
2.
subway bunny.
Beth, at certain points, Coco had a bunny in her crib.
Bunny
in
slippers with the first, yes.
which, and then
Oh,
it
yeah.
comes right
Mhm.
back to the
Gotta
first
bring it
episode
back.
with the
That's why I have in my
with
notes
the-
as well.
Okay.
teddy bear girl bunny
Mhm.
slipper walker that Rick shoots in the pilot.
I read the guy from Forbes who normally I don't agree with. I've been reading his reviews, and I have
mentioned him.
100% agreed with him.
Just to kind of give you context, I'll link to that in the blog.
Just
for
never
you.
going to talk to me again. I'm sorry, Bridget. I'm sorry I'm making you angry down there.
It's
But
not that. What we're doing right now, this focus on the negative, is exactly why I stopped listening to other Walking Dead podcasts. So I'm getting a little peeved because all we're doing is talking about the things we didn't like.
In all fairness, Bridget, I loved this series. I haven't cried for a long time on The Walking Dead anything, and I absolutely cried when I saw Judith and I heard her mom talking to her. Michonne holding her kids finally. I'm starting to tear up when I'm talking about it now. And I absolutely cried again when he finally got to see him and everything, and he got to see her. There was points that I loved, but there was definitely things that I think they rushed to not give you all the love that I wanted with this after waiting for so long and hearing that we're going to have these movies and them all, and Scott Gimple in the afterwards saying that he made these different movies essentially in each episode. He gave me a lot of the cinematics, but he didn't give me that punch that I absolutely adore about this. That little bit made me sad.
I wanted to like this show, and it angered me that I watched this and was so disappointed in it.
I think that's what I was trying to say when I was saying, I know that because of many conversations, to expect a love story predominantly, that was going to be the driving force of the narrative. Mm-hmm. But you know me, I'm all about story. Throw out the love story. Like I said, I would have preferred it going the way, kind of what you're saying, Sharon D. But there's so many elements from the things that all of you have said that I agree with, that I have a problem with. But then I think to myself, but that's what I would do, or that's what I would want. That's not what I was given. And that's actually fine. As long as the thing that I was given was something I could walk away with and say, listen, it's your show. You do what you want. Just make me a believer. There is a danger, and we've spoken about this before in different times of our coverage, that you may not get what you want, but you like what you get sort of situation. I find myself having to stop myself and go, well, did I like what I got? Well, yeah, mostly. And I have to kind of part ways and say, even though this is not the way I would have done it.
Well, you're trying to please how many people?
That's kind of exactly what I'm saying too.
To Shauna, to your point, on something they have been waiting for. That's the thing. We've been waiting for this. So does it feel rushed? I agree with that. But here's the thing. You had a contract for 6 episodes. That's what you got.
Especially with Rick and Michonne, who already left the show.
Push comes to shove. That's what it is, right? You got your contract. Then I came out and said, I cannot speak on that.
Okay. Gotcha.
So they can't say whether there is another contract or not. We have no idea. Right. I didn't think that they were going to be reunited.
At the end.
I didn't even think Rick and Michonne were going to be reunited in this first season.
Are you saying going into the season?
Yes, I didn't think the fact that they were reunited right at the beginning, you're like, what is happening? So then I was like, okay,
I was pleased.
That's fine. Great. I love them together, so I'm happy about it. Okay, so then they're definitely not going to get home by the end. There's no way. I said that in like the last episode.
I literally thought the same thing.
Yeah.
And so for them to get home, that's why it feels rushed, because you're like, okay, this doesn't fully unravel the whole story. And it didn't. There's a whole jump again where stuff happens that you're unaware of. All you get is the voiceover of the news. But I'm sure they wanted to say, look, if all we get is 6 episodes and that's all we're ever going to get, and Andy is never coming back, I don't think that's what's going to happen. But let's say at the beginning of it, that's what the thought was. We don't know how this is going to go. I want to have 6 episodes that get me from beginning to end of my story arc. And so some of it's going to get jumped.
And everything else is cake, if there is anything else at all.
And Terry O'Quinn was underutilized. There are points that I have agreed on during this, but I just didn't like the direction that we were going in, because it was a lot of, I don't like this show and this is why I don't like it. We can all have our qualms about stuff. You heard me rant about season 8 of Fear, but I did always bring up.
Everybody had something to say.
I did always try to bring up the stuff that I thought was impactful. And Charity, while you maybe didn't like this entire series, to me, this was stronger than Dead City.
I disagree, but there were positives. The scenery was beautiful. The cinematography was beautiful. They did some great things.
I want to talk about the writing, because I think that it was good.
I love that Seth showed up, Gabriel. I wish they'd done more with Thorne. I feel like she was underutilized too, because I totally dug her.
We also didn't see a body.
I did not care for her at all. But yeah, that's true. You didn't see a body.
Rachel's
no one's gone until they're gone.
In the process of explaining what you liked about it, let's segue into what you hit on, which is, do you think there's going to be a second season?
I hope so.
Where do we go from here?
I just want to say this. I don't think so. I think this is it. And the title of this episode, which everybody seems to forget, is The Last Time.
It's the last time they're going to separate. It's the last time that they're splitting ways. That's what that's about. Personally, I think there may not be a second season of this, but I could see them re-signing contracts to do whatever this spin-off thing is that Gimple was talking about. Now, to be fair, I had said Gimple could claim that this was the collaborative season that you were getting. Because guess what? We got someone from Walking Dead proper. We got someone from World Beyond. Oh, you've already gotten a crossover?
You're saying the one, the spin-off that ties in other spin-offs?
That's what he said, but like they haven't locked anything down. So like, is this it?
This is the median point right now. This is the apex. I happen to think what Carol was saying on the radio to Daryl in The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, the penultimate episode, I think it was, episode 5. I think she was saying Rick. The timeline does match up.
Could have been Rick,
pretty much.
But we've already talked about this. It could have been Morgan.
This, having them actually come back This is it. This is the moment. I don't see it any other way than it being Rick was what she was talking about. It's the main reason why I think she's going out to get him, is to get him back so she can see the person that he was out there for so long trying to find, and then finally resolved to come back through mitigating circumstances. To go on your point about Gimple and this, is this the show that ties everything in? This show is the starter. I'm thinking we're going to see a lot more melding and crossovers into Dead City, Daryl Dixon. Maybe and there may not be.
There may not be any more of this show. But there's potential to do more spinoffs, to have just this slew of crossovery spin-offy things, starting with Dead City. Especially with them seeing success in these limited series.
Mm-hmm.
You know, World Beyond did okay for what it was, and it brought in new blood
and young
into the genre. This one did well, and they threw a lot of money at it, because I have seen ads for this on TV, literal commercials, while I'm watching a different channel. I can't imagine that it didn't do well. I've seen tons of people talking about it.
First of all, I also love that we can share this platform and have differing opinions, and we can share those grievances. What sets us apart is we're able to do it in a respectful way. It's not just criticism for criticism's sake. There's always a reason or a feeling to back that up. Having said that, I really loved this episode.
Me too.
To be totally honest, I actually think this was the best episode out of the series.
I was just going to ask you to rank it, but okay.
And I'm going to say that because
this is the first episode where you knew the good guys were good and the bad guys were bad.
I knew who my bad guys were and I knew who my good guys were. No. Not always though, because even Thorne had a little moment. But for me, this was the first episode in this series where I felt anxious. I wrote Mikey and I'm like, I'm literally on the edge of my seat. Like, what's going to happen? Like that heavy scene between Beale and Rick. I was just like,
that was beautiful.
Pooping my pants the whole time. I caught myself that moment. Yeah, almost. No, I caught myself from almost swearing.
Oh, I thought the poop coming anyway.
Pooping pants.
Gross.
Poop just went anyway.
Her Negan lines.
The scene in the elevator where Rick's standing next to that other guy and the blood starts dripping, and I'm like, my heart was pounding. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? Like, who is this
sound
person?
that every floor made?
I know.
That was the worst.
Yes, there are things that I can roll my eyes at. But for me, the good heavily outweighed the bad. I felt something in this episode, and it was exciting for me.
I did too.
Rick and Michonne, they're not my favorite on-screen couple either. So I went into this very like, okay, we'll see what this is about. I didn't really have a whole lot of expectation. I never thought they were going to get back home. Yeah. I also thought this whole series was going to be about those two reuniting. And the fact that it happened so soon, that was a twist. Nobody saw that coming. We talked about Thorne somehow surviving that blast. And I'm like, I can ignore those things and just be like, ugh.
Me too.
Did you expect that I was actually going to have the take that I had, by the way?
No, I thought you were going to come in just loving this.
There's no such thing as anybody having a Sharon.
It's okay.
Take.
And I want to clarify
this is as close as I'm going to get.
I'm not mad at Sharon. I don't think I just.
No, I know.
No.
I felt like the positive was really getting steamrolled.
I used to feel that way.
Time out. Stop. I want to talk about this because I felt like the writing was really strong.
I think so too.
There were so many moments in this episode that were just, even in the second watch, there was little stuff that I was catching on to that I hadn't seen in the first one. For instance, the flashbacks. One, what was the worst thing you've ever had to do in order to protect someone you love? And then we see Shane. And I was like, oh yeah, of course he had to protect his family. And then it rolls through, like you're just like, oh, that must be it. But it keeps rolling through all of these things that he's had to do. He's at Terminus and he's stabbing people in the neck, and then he's chewing out Claimer Joe's neck. And I was like, oh, okay.
Still one of my favorite scenes.
Peak Rick.
One more thing though. You do get instances where they felt like they've had to do certain things, horrible things. And then you're also thinking, because the whole interplay with those flashbacks is to illustrate the worst thing you've had to do to protect someone else. But then they showed us things also that they felt like they had to do that you think, but did they have to do that?
I know.
Give me the satellite station.
There was a satellite station
thing. They didn't show that one though, did they?
They didn't show.
They did.
I didn't see a set.
It was for a split second.
Okay.
I watched it like 3 times over, trying to like in the same viewing, trying to find what they were. I did not see the satellite, which made me think it was so weird that Rick didn't have the satellite station or even say that was the worst. Like he killed all these people.
So that happens, right? And so we get this focus, but then we get this focus on remembering these times. So I'm thinking about Claymore Joe, and I'm thinking about what happened, how he was protecting Carl, and how devastating that whole interaction had been, and how upsetting that was. And so it drudged up a lot of these memories that I had related to the show. And is that a little bit of emotional manipulation on the showrunner's part? Of course it is. But
and it works.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. When they talk about, are we crazy? And Michonne says certifiable. And it goes back and pans through the stuff that they've done. In that moment, I was like, okay, we've always talked about how Rick is like a little off, never really recovered. They both are insane. That's like the whole point. They're both legitimately crazy. And I loved that. This is great. I'm so glad that you're showcasing this fact that they've had to do so much that they are past the point of being normal people now. And so when we talk about that they're like superheroes, my viewpoint on that is that this is survival of the fittest.
Apex.
Okay? They are up there. When we're talking like people who can defend, and I'm not talking about crazy like surviving a grenade or anything like that. I can look past that. They are the toughest of the tough. This is the elite.
There's a mental fortitude to it.
We've seen Rick clear out all of Alexandria.
Michonne,
with an axe,
surrounded by zombies too. Yeah,
well, his son is dying in the hospital. Essentially,
we've seen incredible, unbelievable stuff out of these characters. We got to this point where it's like, okay, so yeah, they look at it and they know this isn't normal. I'm not who I was 10, 11 years ago. I am this new person. So when we're talking about leaving things behind, which was this whole motif throughout this entire season, they've left the old themselves behind. They're long gone. And we just get to see that focus. Seeing these people do all of these things and having to do all of these horrible things for the people that they love. And that's what all of this was about, was getting back to the people that you love and having this love story. I know that that's not for everyone, but I really enjoyed that because there's something to be said for finding your person. That's such a beautiful thing. So for them to have found each other again, which is impossible, against all odds, is really beautiful. So yeah, while the making out was making me very nervous early on, I can also understand it to some degree. If I was separated from my husband and I thought I would never see him again, and then I did, by some act of God, I was able to.
You're just explaining John and June, because that's why I fell in love with the whole world. It just didn't work for me with Rick and Michonne. I'm sorry, I know that's offending people and people are getting mad at me about it, but that's just my feeling.
It's fine that you think that. It's fine that you feel that way. Yeah. That wasn't what that was about. I was just trying to say that I wanted to focus on some of the positive because I felt like we were going overtly negative on it.
Kind of goes back to that whole idea of Glenn as he's dying saying, Maggie, I'll find you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Was it everything that I hoped it would be? No, because we've been sitting on this for like 6 years.
I don't ever want to see Rick's sex face again.
I'm all right with it.
When they announced the movies, wasn't that like 6 years ago?
Yeah.
Maybe longer?
At least.
More in there.
Maybe longer. So like we've been sitting on this forever. So I have had time to construct in my head how this should look and how this should go. And of course, whatever I'm provided with is not going to be out of my brain. Right. Because despite what I often say, I did not write this show.
You're not claiming this one.
The other thing that I really want to focus on is that the conversation between Rick and Beale was possibly my favorite moment of this entire series. It was phenomenal. One, Terry O'Quinn. Need I say more? I'm in love with him is maybe the problem. Anyway, on top of that, I know he's way too old for me, but I'm like super into him.
Is he though?
The dialogue was great. The blocking, with the movement, the hand on the sword was really what got me, because the hand on the sword, when you saw that and then it flashed to Rick's knife, instantly my brain was like, he's going to give that sword to Michonne.
Really?
And that's exactly what happened. Like, I was like, oh my gosh.
I thought that was her katana.
No, it was Beale's sword.
Hugh Mercer's
sword.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was Hugh Mercer's sword.
Walker Beale was hot.
I thought his walk was really interesting too, though. I think it's so funny how each actor is so different in their interpretation of
I
being
was
a
baffled
walker.
that they got Terry O'Quinn to agree to portray a walker. How did they get this guy to agree to do this?
He's not
If you're gonna die, you want to be a walker on The Walking Dead.
Everybody wants
It's
to be a
ironic
walker.
since not walking was his whole thing on Lost.
Hey-oh.
It's still too soon. It's still too soon.
Is it though?
It is.
No.
I loved him.
It was
Dave,
2007.
I loved
my
John
love.
Locke with my whole heart, Dave.
Well, he walked eventually, like
My
first
whole heart.
season, I
My
think it
whole
was,
heart.
right?
The flashback scenes of John Locke when he was in his wheelchair and they wouldn't let him go do his. I can't.
Okay, you're good. Stop it with you. You're emotionally manipulating like the show is.
Don't tell me what I can't do.
I can't.
Similar to what you said about tapping the sword, you instantly thought of that going to Michonne.
I did. My brain was all over the place right now.
It's like, I
Because
was
of
about to
course
say
I'm
something.
thinking like, oh my gosh, Rick is gonna buy into this, and then I was like, well, maybe not.
wasn't
I don't
thinking that.
know, and I couldn't tell. I was going all over the place. But the second his hand touched the sword, that's when I was like, he's gonna give it to Michonne. I don't know why, but you remember I
I
brought
thought that was
up,
very interesting.
Yeah, he already gave it to Michonne.
Good
I
sword.
brought up a couple episodes ago how I was concerned about her not having the katana. Jill was like, it's
Okay,
not
I
that
did
big of a
think
deal.
of you then too.
It's not that
yes.
big of a deal. And I had said, I understand that, but it's such an iconic
weapon.
piece that
Mhm.
for me, losing it forever, I can't fathom that. It's so integral. It's not her as a person. She can do whatever she wants. She can do what she does with rebar, but that's part of her persona. That her not having a sword was really upsetting to me.
Did you
Well,
notice she had it at the very end scene though? She
No.
had,
Her katana.
She has Hugh
that wasn't
Mercer's
hers.
sword.
That was
Yeah.
yeah.
but you see her wrapped katana in the end.
She had the katana on her back. You
Yeah,
could
on
see
her
the
back.
handle.
When she came there, yes, she had the handle on her back when you went there at the last scene.
I
She
thought
may
it
have been
was
able
the
to find
katana.
it.
She did. Yeah.
I'll put a screenshot
she
on.
definitely
Okay.
had it.
That's not the important part I want to mention.
Okay.
He taps the sword and you thought that. We had a hard time talking about General Hugh Mercer's sword and Okafor and what it meant. There was a loose tie. When he tapped the sword, all of a sudden, everything sort of connected for me. Hugh Mercer was all about sacrifice and sacrificing his life for a cause. Because that's the thing that Beale was focusing on with Okafor, not his theories and his plans and machinations. Okafor's ideas about A's being a part of the CRM. He knows about that. It was just the idea that someone like him would go all in. He is the story
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning about what it means to turn the tide or to be a turncoat against your own people to save other people, which is exactly what he's proposing for Rick. So isn't it perfect to solidify what you were saying about Michonne's iconography, the sword? I think it's so fitting that Michonne gets the sword, Hugh Mercer's sword, because what did Michonne have to do to get to Rick? She had to sacrifice. She had to take a chance. She had to leave her children. Episode 4. Well, first of all, she had a hard time and she left out in a huff, but Rick went after her, which made it so that she could fight tooth and nail to keep him. And she finally got him. So when you see the sword, when he tapped that sword, I said, this makes so much sense. I'd already watched the episode once. The second time I saw it and he tapped it, I was like, she sacrificed so much. She is the embodiment of sacrifice. This sword makes so much more sense than the katana. And I'm going to say that again. This sword makes so much more sense than the katana because the katana was her old life.
Mm-hmm. True.
Mhm.
All
She
her
put it
previous
out quite a few
lives.
times.
The things she wanted to hang up above the
Yeah.
mantle. Guys, as much as we love that katana, this is so much better. It may not be quite what she's used to, and the katana as a weapon is a far more effective and balanced weapon than any other weapon. It also evokes some of the imagery from the comic book, I think, of her sailing off. She kind of looked like a swashbuckling pirate, so the sort of saber-esque quality of the sword does evoke
Yeah.
some of the comic book feels, but still,
When we talked about the sword, we talked about George Washington and
Yes.
the leaving in the middle of the night.
Mhm.
Ugh, it was the same story. I was like, dude thinks he's George Washington.
Yep.
He
really
did.
So I
Yes.
was right. So he
Yeah.
thought of himself more as George Washington and Okafor being humor. He did everything I needed him to
He
do.
really
Yeah.
did. He was all in on that.
Lucky, wasn't he?
Exactly. Lucky. He's very lucky. It was an interesting parallel to see. I would not have noticed it had we not talked about it.
Broke it down. Yeah.
So I was just really thankful that we had spoken about it so that I could catch that because that was so interesting. And I thought it was such a nice piece of American history. So I was appreciative
Thank you,
of
Sharon
that.
D.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I should dovetail off of that to there's something about what he does in the past, sacrificing his own home, losing that theater of battle, and going to Philadelphia to win that fight. Throughout this series, we see Okafor sacrifice, him being a turncoat to his own people, his own Air Force. Okafor sacrifices his own wife in order to save the world. Let's just say that for brevity. Beale sort of feels like he has to do the same thing in order to wipe out that front and succeed in that battle. He leaves it so that the dead can overwhelm his enemies, but therefore sacrificing his home, the VFW, all the people that raised him, all the people he may or may not have been friends with, to go to Philadelphia to be in this moment so that he can be a part of the Civic Republic eventually.
Which he never actually became a part of.
It goes back to what Huck said. You have to become the monster to fight the monsters. He feels like he has to be a man apart in order to save the world. It's like Moses, isn't it? Moses never became a citizen of the land of Israel, too. Moses took the Israelites all the way to the promised land and said, bye, I made a mistake way back. God expected more of me.
That goes back to the Lord of the Rings analogy I made way back at the beginning, because that's exactly what Frodo does. He saves the Shire for everybody else, and then he leaves and goes to the Grey Havens. Because
too much has happened, too much damage has been wrought, or whatever it is. Moses, he made a mistake and he had to pay for it. And it's the same thing as King David also with the first temple. He was in God's favor for so long, and he had that little slip up with Bathsheba, and God's like, well,
you just wanted to get King David in there, that's all.
Yeah. Arguably one of the best kings.
It's the same story.
You get yay far, you get to do the prep work, but your son's going to take over for this. It's up to your son. He was upset about that, but he's like, you know what? You're God. I can't be mad at it. Anyway, so the point of me bringing this up is that he feels like he's a man apart. He's not a citizen officially, but he wants to feel the weight of it. He's like, he's know what I have to do. He's reaping all the
benefits.
He even says, I didn't have to do my 6 for citizenship.
I love that expression. Alliance of 3, 6 for citizenship. There's some number wordplay here. But anyway, to go back to the theater of war, throughout this entire series, there's a part of you in the back of your brain, the Savior's perspective, they're not as bad as we thought they were. Gray villains, I respect Okafor for the decision he felt like he had to make. Beale is leveraging his story to tell a different story. And throughout this, you would think that there was some sort of redeeming quality to it. And maybe, again, on a utilitarian level, in order to save humanity, he feels like he has to do this.
That's what I was going to say, though, Dave.
And he was doing it for so long.
I think it's easy to say that he's just a bad guy, but he's not. He does have principles, which he stands by.
So I really twisted you with that one, didn't I?
You did. When he's talking with Rick at the fence line, which, by the way, can we just talk about the fact that Pearl Thorne is so nosy?
I think it's intentional,
He's supposed to be there by himself, and she goes back again and is like, oh, he's not here. Rick's up to something. You are so nosy. Grow up. Anyway,
I kind of liked it,
Get a life.
I actually enjoyed that piece of it.
Okay.
It was annoying, but...
So nosy, and she still didn't figure it out.
He did just tell Thorne, though, at that point that she had let Bethune in. So it can come back on you as well if something happens with us. It's kind of what it felt like to me.
The point of me saying all of this, you could see it from the other side. You could maybe try to figure out what he's trying to do and give it some merit to it, right? And value. But at the end of the day, he says Rick's story is one for the ages. It's the thing that will get people to rally behind him. And then just like the tapping of the sword, it all sort of came together. History is repeating itself. Rick is the Okafor in this situation. And Beale is the federal forces. Rick is the National Guard. Beale can never see it that way.
Beale is manipulative.
You become that monster.
But he stands by his principles. What I was trying to say is when he was at the fence and he's talking to Rick, when Thorne brings Rick there and is like, you're going to get the echelon briefing. And he says all of that stuff about like, I want to carry the weight of my decisions. 1, bro, you're such a martyr. Get over yourself. 2, I actually respect that. As a leader, solid choice. Don't leave your men hanging with the decisions that you're forcing them to make, which is killing a bunch of people. You're trying to say, I'm hanging this all on my shoulders, which is great. Good on you. I think it's easy to say he's a bad guy because he's a bad guy to our people.
Right.
But he honestly thinks that he is stopping the world from ending.
The hero of his own story.
Genuinely. So when you look at it from that perspective, he's not necessarily a bad guy, but he's misguided.
One of the things this show has always gone out of its way to do is show that nobody is black and white. Everybody is gray. There is no good guy. There is no bad guy. Everybody just is surviving. And it's all perspective on whether you think somebody's a good guy or a bad guy. Where do you think Mason is? Mason General Beale?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, people were talking about this on the internet.
Beale. Yeah.
Oh,
Mason
yeah, I
Beale.
forgot about him.
Mason General Beale. It's my word.
Mason Dixon Beale, that's his name.
Could he step into Major General Beale's place and become the next big bad.
Ugh,
Do you think he knew
he's a punk.
what his dad was up to, though? Do you think he's privy to the echelon briefing?
Since he was staying in New York,
I doubt
yeah,
I doubt it.
but that doesn't mean he couldn't be brought in. If this is 11 years, then this is about 6 or 7 months after they blew up the New York base.
Something,
So
to that effect.
He could have been brought back over and be in training or something, and we don't know. Not every echelon person was there.
You know what could happen now that the people have overthrown and they're like out with the old regime? Who could manipulate that situation to come out on top? None other than Kublek.
Wait, didn't Mason die?
No, that was Percy. I thought that
That was
too,
Percy.
but Percy died.
Mason
Mason
got
was
away.
airlifted away in safety.
Oh,
with
that's right.
Warrant
That's right.
Officer Jadis Stokes.
That's right. That's right.
Just to throw this in, Jadis had painted a portrait of Kublek, it looks like, in her room. I think there was something
There was
about
two
her.
Gabriel.
We saw
There
her.
were 3 of Gabriel.
There was 3. I didn't
There
see
were
the
3.
third. I only saw the
There were
2. I
3.
kept watching it, but I didn't see
There
that.
was one on the floor, one on this
On the
side
wall
of the
by the
pillar,
eel.
and one on the other side of the pillar.
There
by
were
the wall.
several sketches of Gabriel on the corkboard as well.
Yeah,
So this
yeah,
is,
there were a
you
lot
know,
of Gabriel in there.
What do you think about my
Oh.
theory now, bitches?
She did die an artist.
Oh. There is something about the
was-
legend,
Oh, that's beautiful.
people living on after, because it's what you leave behind too.
Mhm.
That is a mark of who you are.
Until the very moment Michonne pulled that out and started reading it, I still doubted the existence of that
I did
document.
too. I was
know?
hoping
Yeah.
it wasn't there.
Isn't that the point?
Yeah. Yep.
Tense.
Burn that S.
Yeah.
Michonne,
I
what
know.
are you
I
doing?
was
When
yelling
she
at her
dropped
too.
the pieces on
I'm
the
like,
ground,
why
I was
are you
like,
ripping it?
What are you doing eating?
Yeah.
What's
I'm
wrong
like,
with you?
burn
Eat
And she did
it.
it too. She realized it too.
Yeah.
These mother
Yeah.
would
She was just so
gladly
mad
put
when
this
she
thing
read
back
it, I
together.
think.
Set
Yeah.
fire to that.
That's all I could
Yeah.
think was eat
I know, I
that
was yelling
thing
at her,
before
too.
you get caught with it on your person. If Kublek is still locked up, which who knows what happened to her, but let's say she's still locked up. She could manipulate this situation to say, I was trying to do the right thing. I was trying to stop this from happening. And Major Beale couldn't stand it and he locked me away.
Mm-hmm.
And then bam, there's your higher up because she was pretty high up.
Well, and yeah, what military commanders do you have left? Some of the lieutenant colonels
Just
and the
say, I'm
sergeant
just saying,
majors
when I'm trying to rack my brain on who could step up, it's
in the
that,
infantry.
it's that person or it's the collector. Because those are your two,
Mason.
like, it's like your
Mhm.
unknown higher up.
I hope Silas wasn't at the echelon briefing.
I was thinking about that.
There was
Yeah.
2,533 of them.
That would be a lot of upward movement for him in terms of where his ranking
yeah.
was.
He was
That's
Jadis's
true.
little pet, though. You know what I mean?
I just saw you wink. I saw it.
I did too. It was one, it creeped me out, but two,
I didn't like it.
I didn't like it. It made me
Where's the
uncomfortable.
apron?
But two,
Actually, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of actually do like it.
Dave would
Sorry.
like it. I did not.
You know what, Charity? I
Um,
rescind my creeped outness, actually.
What? I didn't. What are you talking about? I didn't wink.
I almost forgot this little tidbit, by the way. Remember how we were saying there was this one little frame in the title sequence where it had the lot pod something on the shelf, and there was all these tubes? It's
Yeah, we
just a
saw it.
washed out framing of the chlorine gas. And if you look very closely, you can see shades of blue and a shade of green.
Mhm.
I love how they did that because up until the end, we didn't know what this thing was. Because based on perspective, you're like, oh, it looks like a bookshelf. It's not a bookshelf.
That makes me think of Better Call Saul when they did the very opener at the
Yes.
very beginning of season 6, and they were like, "You'll know what all this stuff is by the end of
Oh,
the
yeah.
series."
Yeah.
Where you
Mhm.
went
Yeah.
through the
The final
house,
season.
there was the book and the cat and the,
Oh,
and the
yeah.
little black book and all that stuff.
And the mixing of the dough. That was the best. And Rachel going, the dough's done. She switches it off. The dough's just done. Oh
just
no,
done.
Rachel. Oh no. Oh no. Anyway, sorry. I
You
love
think
you.
too hard sometimes.
Listen, it's a problem. I want to go back to Pharmacon. It's like the Pokemon. Anyway, no. So something hit me on my third watch finally. When he's talking about the 6 for citizenship and not really belonging, I remembered what he said to Rick about Pharmacon. And he was holding his cards to the vest when it came to what he said to Thorne and Grimes, but mostly Grimes, about being Pharmacon, about being the poison and the cure. Isn't that exactly what Beale embodies? And he wants to see out of his people. He wants to see people who are willing to sacrifice to the utmost to emulate him, to be the poison that ends up being the cure. The sword that kills and the sword that brings life, burning it all down to bring it back again, bring things back again. When you go back and pick out things like that, you realize, oh, that's what he wanted all along. He just didn't want to show his hand. Saying to them sort of wryly that, oh, you know, I've been thinking about this thing called Pharmacon. It's left to be decided whether you're the right person. He knew from the moment he sat down with Rick And he said, "Look me in the eyes, Grimes." He knew that this was exactly what he's looking for, someone like himself. And so he's just being coy, leading him on, seeing if this is the right fit, and then planting things like farm. And then you see at the end of the episode, oh, he was never a citizen. Oh, just like Rick. Rick was never a bee. He tried to escape 4 times. He never belonged. So he was looking for that guy.
He was
that
never
was exactly
a bee.
like him. He was an
Except
anus.
after Lori died. Then he was kind of a bee for a little
He was kind of a
while.
little bee.
Oh, he was a big
Everybody's
bee.
a little bee.
Actually, in
Yeah.
season 7, he was a
Season
big bee.
7, he was a big bee too.
Hey,
Yeah, he
aw.
was.
He was.
We were all bees, lowercase bees too. Not even like an uppercase embodiment
a-
of the word.
Uppercase, capital, bold in italics bee.
We were a droopy cursive bee,
So
lowercase.
basically, by Rick, he went against his own memories of his father because his father was the one who was like, burn it down to rebuild it. And Rick said, nah, I'm not going to do that.
No,
Well,
it's the
he
exact
is.
opposite.
He
He
is, in a way.
but not the way you wanted.
He's burning it down in the traditional sense that they have built it. He's burning all of that down and saying, nope.
And that's the irony. A lot of people said that. I just saw this literally almost before we started recording. I think this was Kira actually too. Kira in exchange with somebody else. Okafor would have been proud. And there was something inside me that said, I don't think Okafor wanted Rick to work within the system as an A, pretending to be a B, where it counts.
He wanted a slower change.
Okafor was
Incremental change.
He was too hopeful about how it could be manipulated. That there was a way to manipulate it from the inside. But the curtain had been lifted. They had seen how many people were going to be killed, how many kids were going to be taken. And they said, no, there's no saving this now. You got to blow the whole thing up or they're literally going to blow up an entire city.
Because they had that moment of when they were thinking to Rick, where he says, we could just basically go home. And
I lost
then
so much
instead,
time.
yeah.
I'm mad at myself. I think what really gets me is that, okay, let's start with the Okafor thing. I don't think Okafor really wanted this. Or let's use alternate history here. Maybe this is exactly what Okafor wanted, but in the way that Okafor was strong enough to make this decision that he had to make. But I don't think he could make that decision again. It took way too big a toll on him. So he groomed a bunch of people to maybe do it for him, to maybe be prepared to make that decision again, but against the CRM. I can accept that. It's kind of like the Moses thing. You can get to a point, you can step up to the border of the promised land, but you can't cross the borderland. So what does he do? He raises his protege, Joshua. Right. And that's Rick. You are going to shepherd whatever happens after that. But an A like you needs to be the one, because only A's can have the fortitude and leadership qualities to do what I just can't anymore. I'm sorry. I'm a B now. And maybe to your point about Thorne, seeing the echelon briefing makes you a B if you fall in line. I'm fully on board with that now.
It convinced her that Okafor was full of crap.
S.
He's an S. Oh no, I don't like that.
So let me, since we're on the topic of Okafor and how he would feel about all this, let me ask a question. The echelon briefing, do you think that was specifically regarding Portland or just the overall view of we need to do terrible things in order for good things to happen? Okafor knows specifically about Portland?
I'm going to say no, but when Beale is talking about what the overall plan of the echelon briefing is, remember what I said? Portland rose to the status of the second most successful, largest colony on maybe the planet.
He would have known the truth behind Omaha.
Well, no, he said it. No more Omahas.
I think he would have been proud that Rick stopped it before another Omaha
For
could happen.
stopping it, but not in the way that he did.
Yeah, exactly. The genociding of almost 2,500
Okafor did love
people.
his troops. You know, he still loved
That's true.
the people that worked under him. And
I have mixed
when
feelings
you're
about
up
it.
in that space in the military, your job is to make sure that those people are safe.
What other option do you think they should have taken? They were getting ready to do this.
I think they made the right choice.
They couldn't have spent time
Oh,
in
no, I
there
think they made the right choice
manipulating
too.
things.
You have to do a big thing.
But they still didn't take out like all the armaments and stuff. They just took out some people. All the tanks and helicopters and all that stuff is I think out there just waiting for somebody to pick it up and use it
I'm
again.
fine with that.
That's
There's more
good,
chaos
though.
for future spin-offs.
Yeah, I think that could be a good thing though. If you have the right people in these positions, that can still be beneficial.
Well, because why aren't you bombing the millions?
They didn't take out the CRM. The CRM is still there. They took out some head people. There's still CRM people out there. I don't think they had every single echelon person
Be more
there.
specific.
That was not 2,500 people.
I'm going to say this. The frontliners and command, they're all there. What you may be alluding to are
People like Rick who have gotten the echelon briefing. There were not 2,500 people there.
they were all there, purportedly. But what you should be worried about are the embeds. Embed spies what Beale was referring to.
Yeah, I was like, what is there one in the Commonwealth? Is there one in Alexandria? Like,
That's
could we
exactly
not
what he's saying.
know?
I mean, was Jada's one?
Another Dante.
That's sort of, I was going to say that as well, that
exactly,
Jadis
another Dante.
could
With Heath?
constitute as one.
Terrifying.
Was Heath the one? Is that where he went?
Oh, honey, listen, Heath, we got to put to the side. There is
I've
an
gotta
Easter
talk
egg
about
that
it.
eludes.
That's what I was gasping about.
I saw Tobias there.
Off.
Tobias!
There deserves an F word. Okay.
Yes.
But no. Let's put that to the side because that's a special, there was an specific Easter egg that we have to refer to for Heath, which opens up a whole other conversation. Let's answer Rachel's question though. Because at the very end, he was saying, after we destroy Portland, our whole thing in the echelon briefing is marching all over the countryside, decimating from the largest, medium-sized to small-sized colonies and destroying it all, taking their resources.
Yep.
Instead of,
That's what got
why
him
are
to
you
kill
not
them.
utilizing your resources to kill the dead?
Mm-hmm.
And the
Right,
dead,
but this brings me back to
they are dead,
Jadis.
though.
living or dead.
Why are they giving out their supplies to Jadis's group?
I think that was an earlier time in the.
It was.
You know what I
It was.
mean?
They
Like they
needed
were
more
doing things
resources.
different then. They were doing trades. They had different objectives, like the A's and B's. They had the different things that they were trying to do to figure out things. Because he says basically they've given up on the idea of being able to figure out what happened with the virus. So
That was before they blew up the
Exactly.
science lab.
then when they
Yeah.
finally did decide that was done, they're like, all right, fine. We're just going to take everything from everyone and screw
And
you.
they're adapting because the whole point of it is they need to build the resources necessary because they didn't have all the resources. He mentions this in his smaller conversation with Rick at the fence. They didn't have everything that they needed.
He told Rick in the fence area when he was talking about he never ever gives anybody that time before he does something like this. He gives it to Rick. Not only does he give it to Rick, but he even tells him, I even kind of want you to share some of the weight of it, which
Right.
is something he never ever does, which I thought
Because
was very
he wanted
telling.
Rick to be all in
Yeah.
so that he could utilize his story as propaganda essentially for the CRM.
We also know how manipulative Beale is. In that moment, I thought, okay, how many other people did you say this exact thing to?
And
though?
you see the mask sort of slip too. He made the same bargain he made with all the 250, whatever, 2,553
yeah, but most
soldiers.
of them are probably B's.
That's a given, and you're right.
Yeah, we're
'Cause he
not
didn't
talking
have
about
to.
A's. They're the yes men in the military, which is typical military.
Turns out Pearl was never actually an A.
I
then.
God was in the military. I can say it.
I will say, hold on. I will say that no, Pearl was an A. And just like Donald Okafor was an A, but he's seen too much. He's done too much. Finally saw the echelon briefing. He's like, can't.
I don't know. She
what am I-
toes
what
the
am I gonna
line
do?
pretty damn fast.
I have no choice.
Would Rick have been Beale if he had continued down his dark path that he had been down for a while? Do you think he could have ever been there in his head to where he would have made it to that point of being that Beale mindset? Because like when he went out and took everyone out at the Saviors, yes, you killed 2 of your people. As much as I love those people and I still can't stand Negan, it was still just 2 of your people.
He says in this episode, Carl's the only reason that he came back.
Mm-hmm.
And furthermore, the beginning of this episode sounds a lot like the monologue that he gave at the end of The Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the words were the same. Some of the words in that monologue are referenced throughout, even said by Beale.
Mm-hmm.
The next world was something that Jesus had said, but that appears in the Charter for Rights and Freedoms, which is something that Rick says later on. The next world, we need the new world, Carl, the new world. Anyway, so
That was
and then he
horrible.
says to the show, he says to Beale as he has the sword in his hand, one unstoppable love, which is exactly what he says in the end monologue for The Walking Dead. One unstoppable love. But to your point, there was one part where I thought, and this is exactly the part where the mask sort of slips.
Mm-hmm.
As an exception to the rule, he says, just to get you on board, just to throw in a little, I'll throw in the keys for this car. I'll throw in the lug nuts. He says, I will take anybody. I don't care if we stumble across them, we'll pick them up and bring them to the CR. And you see Rick go from holding his knife face down so he can easily stab him in the face to like flipping it. I'll do him a little grace. I'll flip it upwards because up until that point, he hasn't said the worst of it yet. And that was probably the most tense moment. The mask slips with Beale because it's like, wait, hold on a second. You're telling me I'm the exception? What makes me the exception? And then you hear later on, you could run this thing. We said this about June Dory. You could run this thing. Ginny to June, you could run this thing. It's very interesting considering what he's prepared to do.
Major Ginny Abiel.
What he's planning to do, not prepared to. What he's planning to do.
Planning to do, right.
Yeah. There's a difference between being prepared and thinking about something and having a plan to actively go do something that extreme.
But he steps out in order to feel like to be isolated and alone so that he knows he can never turn back. This is my plan. I have to stick to it. No feelings involved.
Can we talk about the PPP thing?
That's the Heath connection. Okay. Yeah. There's a whiteboard in an office that Thorne busts through to see a good view of the heads up meeting before they are about to do what they're about to do. It's sort of a strategic plan for the N1W plan, which is the Portland bombing, gassing, and also the CEP, the child extraction program, I think it is. Evacuation program, right? The reference is PPP exception on the right under the words reclamation. We all know what reclamation teams are. They're meant to eliminate people out in the wild that happen to see them. But what is PPP exception? I have no real good answers, but I'm starting to think that Heath might have been one of those spies in these communities.
Well, he found that card. He didn't have it on him. He found it.
Wait, hold on.
No,
Did he find it?
He didn't find it. Tara found it on the ground after he was gone.
Now, there's two possibilities in my estimation, because Gimple had always said that Jadis was the one who airlifted him out. Now, he could retcon that because it's not official canon. Always, he could say, oh, I said that, but this is how it ended up turning up on the shows. Heath could have been the embed or the spy all along. It was Heath all along. It was, anyway.
Maybe.
Or it could have been Jadis who dropped her damn card.
True. He is not the only person that we've seen with one of those cards either. Devon.
Who took it off of the guy he shot.
Yeah.
In the flashback-y sequence. In the beginning, end, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what does everybody think about this nugget now that it's in the atmosphere? Gimple said that it would show up again in this series in the background on a whiteboard.
He is a
what
punk.
A son of a bitch.
This is the kind of stuff he does, though. That's why I was saying the whole thing about how he could be like, this is your crossover series, because this is the kind of stuff he does. He's like, it's going to be in there. Keep an eye out. A close eye, because it's literally in the background and it's like,
it's actually worse. It's worse than what it was in Devon. I have to give him so much credit for it, by the way, because up until now, I thought that Gimple went soft. And then he does something like this. And I'm like, oh, it's still him. Dave. It's still him. The edges are a little bit more rounded, but it's still him.
I only got to watch the episode once and I totally missed it. Yeah, if I had been
only
more
caught it because
everyone
and their mom was talking about it because it was the shot that was in the preview. So people have been talking about this for over a week.
I don't know what the PPP stands for, but just during this conversation that we're having right now, it sounds like these are cards that they give to people so that when they go decimate these communities, they know who to pull out.
Yep, precisely.
Don't kill these people.
Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Portland.
But Pittsburgh is bombed. It's dead.
Would you put the city and the state in the other P?
People, please protect.
This is the first time that I've ever wanted to really, because I really don't like talking about Heath. It's such a dead end. But if I had to go around the room, Shauna first.
If I could, I'd have a podcast just about Tobias and Heath, and that's it.
Yes.
My God. And Madison come. Oh, wait, she came back.
No, you stop that.
Right.
Not that.
Shauna, do you think that Heath was a spy? Or do you think he was picked up by a spy?
I think since he was willing to just up and leave everyone.
I don't like it. I love Heath, so I don't want him to be
I know,
shaky.
But Jadis was essentially a spy as well for them. I mean, she was feeding them people. Was she any better than Terminus people? Because at least they were using them for sustenance, not for science experiments. You know? So, I mean, I think it's going to be
really more on the side of it being Jadis.
Like looking at, I don't think you'd know who the other spies are because that would take their mysteriousness away, their hidden self. I think they would have made sure that the people did not know what each spy was. Yes. Because even if it was a spy, if they turned and they decided, oh, I love this group, the other spy would then be reporting back, like, this person has changed so much, that kind of thing.
What if Jadis came to get him and he was like, no, bro, I've got the PPP. And she just threw it. And she was like, not anymore.
Bitch. You know, not a bad theory. I like it, actually.
How did she move up in the ranks if first she lost her card? They're like, wow, you
Right.
can't even be trusted with a card.
She had the cans of food.
Wow.
Same girl, same.
Yeah. Small factoid. Beale mentions that he was in Fort Benning, which is now called Fort Moore. This is in Columbus, Georgia.
Fort Benning is who they mentioned in the beginning. That was where they were going to go in the first season. That's where they were arguing to go, was to Fort
Yeah,
Benning.
that's right.
Right,
yeah.
In the first season of The Walking Dead, yes, Fort Benning.
Mhm.
But Fort Benning is now called Fort Moore. The reason why is because it was named previously after General Henry L. Benning of the Confederate Army. The previous motto for Fort Benning was "Follow me." The emblem, what is the main symbol? An upright sword in the exact same shape as General Mercer's sword.
Me, everything
It
is
turns into something
alright.
else that's not even worth mentioning, but it's the idea that, okay, you link this and link that, link it back to The Walking Dead, because I was looking it up. I was like, I've heard that name before. I thought I heard it on Fear too, that the Krennics were mentioning Fort Benning in episode.
Well, Fort Benning is a pretty well-known military.
But within the
base.
universe, the Krennics on Fear the Walking Dead, General Krennic and the kids, they mentioned something about Fort Benning, and I didn't write it down in my notes, I guess. It's interesting how that all kind
Seems
of, and also Fort Benning would make sense because they're in Savannah, Georgia. It's on the opposite side of the country on the border of Alabama, but still,
We know they can teleport around the South.
especially with a chopper now.
Get to the chopper.
Well, you know, there's all
That's
those
right where my brain went.
portals in the South where you just jump in here like a Mario sewer tunnel. You just like, and then pop out. Yeah. And then just pop out over here. Do 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 do.
It wasn't Fort Benning in Fear. It was Edwards Air Base.
One grievance, and I just wanted to know if I'm the only one that felt this way. The anxiety that I was feeling this episode. Michonne and Rick, obviously they sped it up, but they took like forever hanging all those individual grenades all over in there, stringing them all up. And I'm just like, how has no one walked in and just like, I don't know, peeked at everything? Like, what?
I feel like I can answer your question with another factoid. Something that Thorne says about her response to when Rick says, let's just say it was Okafor that saved me, not Dana Bethune.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, I wanted to talk to you about this, Rick. It's like, Okafor was wrong. And here's why. She's the Dave of the show. But it got me to thinking, I had mentioned something about submission earlier, and she literally spelled it out. Sometimes giving up is a strength also. No, you're talking about submission. And not only that, we're talking about submission to a higher power. This is the new religion. To cap that off, she says, Okafor died because it was God's will. I wrote this in my notes. It's not literally what she said. Okafor is a perfect example. He wasn't the one who lived. You were. It wasn't meant to be for him, meaning it was God's will. It was God's will that Okafor died. It was the Echelon Briefing's will. Turns out he was wrong, is what she's saying, after all.
Here's why he's wrong.
Right. That's
She
Thorne.
said Okafor was
Dave.
never really here, not in the way he
Right.
should have been, but you lived, I lived. That's what she said. I wrote it down.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And what is that if not
Oh,
submission?
because she
and
was
submitting?
lucky and didn't get shot out of the sky. It had nothing to do with anything. It could have just as easily been her that was in that.
Although, why
outfit.
wasn't she
Exactly.
confused when Rick said what he said right before it, which was just say it's Okafor, that we're just keeping this thing going? She had already said she didn't want to keep Okafor's thing going.
She was more rocked by his death at the time in Bye. I think it was it Bye? Was it Gone that she was mourning? Yeah, it was Gone. But here she's like, well, as a matter of fact, I've been thinking a lot about the last thing I said about having doubts about Okafor. And it's like, here's why you're wrong, Rick. It's not Okafor that saved you. And it wasn't Dana Bethune. It was God. God saved you. That's it. God didn't save Okafor. God brought you here to this moment to bring about the Echelon plan with me, your family. So to answer your question, Rachel, you're talking about of the 2,553 people that have heard the Echelon briefing that are purportedly on site, Thorne is the A of them that would have the doubts. You're talking about people who are paying close attention to what that guy is saying and not paying attention or being distracted by anything that's going on behind them.
You see them all lined up, just standing there waiting for their next order. My dad was a military photographer for a while, too. He was supposed to be deployed for Desert Storm. He took pictures prior to of it, and you literally just see all these people, their backs are over on the side, ready to go. He didn't end up getting deployed because they literally ended the war right before he left, but he was in the base ready to go. They were supposed to leave the next day. And you literally just see these pictures of people just standing there in rows like that, and they're not looking at anything but what that objective is right in front of them. They're like horses with blinders. There's nothing else there for them.
And keep in mind, they're all bees too.
Mm-hmm.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
Every word spilling out of whoever's talking's mouth, they're lapping up.
Now,
There
they're the
wouldn't be anyone
strongest
like
bees, but they're bees.
positioned right there outside that.
They wouldn't think they need to, though. You got to think. The others are like the low bees. They're the strong bees. So why would they need anybody else?
I love that you said low bees because it sounds like another Pokemon.
Like Flowbee.
I'm a low bee. Low bee. Sorry, we're losing it now.
But I mean, that would also explain why
Thank you
nobody
for
paid
that.
attention that Michonne got up and left the mandatory briefing with all the
Yeah.
kids.
You know, and that got me a little tense to begin with too.
Oh, yeah.
The picking up of the bunny all the way to her storming out of that thing. I was like, Michonne, you're showing your brazen anus again.
And they just kind of look at her like, why would you pick that up?
Yeah, you're supposed to
They
know all
do.
this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Small factoid before we get into anything else that we want to talk about. One of the books in the shelf in Jadis's room features an author named Kevin Konowitz, because it's Jewish, it's Polish Jewish, whatever it could be, who is a best boy or a grip in the industry. They work in camera and electrical. Sometimes they hold booms, whatever. You get the idea. He is not a boom or grip on this show. However, he may be uncredited. And I'll put a screenshot for this in the blog, but it's the oddest confluence of names that
it's not a
5
name that would just
results.
pop into your head.
Right.
Let me make up a name. Oh, I know.
There was only 5 results
Yeah.
when you put these things together, by the way, the whole of the internet. And most of them come up with this guy, this best boy or grip, camera and electrical, etc.
Best boy.
Beale mentioned the fact that the walkers were changing as well. When he's looking at them, he talks about
Mhm.
whatever they're
Yes.
changing into. According to him, he kind of alluded that people were also changing. Were they talking about just how their attitude was towards things, or were they talking about their actual DNA? Were they changing that way?
Well, wasn't that the hope with the experiments too, getting the A's and B's?
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, what we were trying to figure out in World Beyond, that of course you're going to monitor the walkers to see if we can not make them reanimate.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
was
they're
it also
like, oh, here's airborne illnesses that we're going to release, and then we'll mutate it and then
Mhm.
release it again. Sound familiar? And then they're like, oh, you know what we're going to do? We're going to create a green gas, and then we're going to release that into the air too. And a lot of it. So good luck. That's like happening all over the place. They're just
Yeah.
like releasing stuff into the air.
just
over and
releasing
over
all these
again.
gases? Walking Dead Daryl Dix. So this brings me to a point that I had thought of, but I didn't think we would actually talk about. Janae in The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon near the end says, the elites, they brought this thing, this virus. Now, we were thinking it could be a lot of things. It could be the government, whatever it is. She may have an awareness of the CRM. We were thinking black clothes. Obviously, she's part of the CRM. I don't think so. And in fact, she may be aware of them and they may square off. CRM is global. And if she is laying this at the feet of the CRM, let's say, she doesn't know everything about them. Who would? But if she knows of their existence and the fact that they are global and maybe they ran across it, she has scientists, they have people, it could stand to reason that there is a confrontation brewing.
I just need people to know that all these plans that Beale had, this is real stuff that the government does. I just want you guys to know that.
This silence will appear on the episode. Just a note.
There's a lot of nodding heads.
Okay, joking aside, because I was silent for comedic effect mostly, but there are things that make us think that is possible.
As he was talking about it, I'm like, God, that's horrible.
You're talking about
And then I
Tuskegee
was like, oh,
experiments.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I just
true.
don't want to knock on my door tomorrow
Mhm.
or the day after we air this. So
okay. Noted. I will edit this entire piece out.
That none
Don't
of
worry,
us need to see what
China
happens here.
already
You know
has
what
it.
happened.
yeah.
China already
no,
has
where-
it. They're listening right
where
now.
are
The
Riverside
government
servers
is
again?
evil. I take it off you, Rachel. The government is evil.
I mean, I love it here. Go America.
Yes, Shandy, yes.
Everything's
Yeah.
great. I mean, America is pretty
Yes.
great. I won't
Go.
lie. America is
Go,
hey,
America. Compared to most other countries, yeah, we are pretty
Yeah, we're
dang
pretty
great.
great.
But we got some issues.
We do. Every country does.
yeah.
Clearly.
Oh, yeah. But of the issues we have, it's not having a refrigerator.
We got a real big issue in particular that I'm not going to name, but that's okay.
There's
Let's
more.
mute
There's
this
more
out.
than one of those, but yes.
We'll talk, Sharon.
We've got banana smacks.
Did you also think it was neat that Beale had the same idea of everybody being dead, like the whole Fear the Walking Dead kind of Rick thing? Because we haven't mentioned that at all, and it's kind of annoying me.
We're not
did.
dead.
That's a big thing.
We did.
We're not dead.
That's
he
what
finally
I
has
said, we're
something
not
he's
dead.
dead, though.
We're not dead.
Passe.
You are.
Yeah.
I love that.
I laughed so hard.
I laughed, but I also did like a Rick head tilt. Like, yeah, that's right. Actually, not wrong. He is dead.
Also, he must not know
That's
Rick
how it went down.
because he didn't search him for other weapons. He only wanted his hand and his gun, which he plays with the whole time.
Hold on a second. Thorne busts into Rick's room, and what does she see? His prosthesis, right? If you see the prosthesis, the knife is broken off of the prosthesis. That's what he used to kill Major General Beale. Bridget was like, yeah, and like all muted, but she didn't say it, so I felt not really great about it.
I wanted to argue, but the more I think about it, yeah, no, you're right. Well, I wanted to say, no, there was like a handle on it, but no, what I saw were probably like holes where it would have been attached.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Rick and Michonne, when they were showing the scenes back and forth of them, that they simultaneously agreed, oh no, this has all got to be burnt down to the ground. We have to get rid of the bad to make the good, essentially, which he does kind of still take his dad's idea and advice of sometimes you have to burn things down to make them right.
Not the way Beale wants it, but yeah, it's turning.
Well, he wanted a sword.
On its head.
Rick went fire.
By the way, this is going to sound like the stupidest thing ever, but I thought about this as I was watching it the third time. I unintentionally created the very thing at the end in our merch art. It's Michonne's katana. I added fire to it. Stabbed with the sword is the world's going to need Rick Grimes. So the whole thing coming together in our art is actually kind of cool.
Good job, David.
Yes. Pat on the back.
Good job, David.
Unintentionally
you did
prophetic.
So awesome.
I thought you said everybody made it, Dave. I'm going to say that because
No,
the
it
four
was
of
just
you,
me.
you said everybody
It's
made
me.
them. That's what I heard in the last thing.
I did it.
And I was
It was all me.
listening to it, and it was about lines and how you change one line versus another. And
That was Rachel making a joke at my expense. But I am a prophet. I am descended from kings.
No, David did make
I'm
it, but then he
falling
sent
asleep because this
us
is so
100
boring.
different things, being like, he
Why
sent
don't
us
you yawn into the
100
mic?
of the
Don't yawn.
same image and was like, what do you think of all of these? And we're like, they're the same thing. And he's like, no, I put a blue line right here under that thing. And I'm like,
7,000 blue
what?
lines.
Can you show me the
Okay.
difference
Who's
between
counting?
these two pictures?
Yes. No, I cannot.
They're the same picture.
Oh, wait.
They're the same
One has a
picture.
black background and one has
That's
a
what I was
white.
going to say, Charity. I was going to say, they're the same.
They're the
You're
same.
useless. I'm not using you for opinions anymore. You can't tell the difference. There's no difference.
well, I think you all collectively did a beautiful job. And I'm not giving Dave all the credit on this, even if he did say he did it.
I literally made it.
Aw,
He did
good
put
job,
in a- he
Dave.
put
Take
in a
all
lot
the
more
credit.
Yeah,
than
but
we
we
did.
had the input. I mean,
I know. Yeah.
Rick Grimes' head tilt.
And then he, in detail,
As long as
explained
it's
why
not the
we were
sex
all
tapes again, we're
wrong.
good.
It's horrible. I don't like this guy who criticized you. Who was that? I'm a different person. I met the love of my life and I became
Oh,
a
you
different
got-
person.
You got your update patch?
we're the
Yeah.
ones
That's
who made the
good.
design.
It's called empathy.
Don't say it too many times. That I will say. I'm with you on that
Don't
part,
question
Trinity.
them.
They said we are the ones who live way too many times.
Well, I mean, there's this unstoppable love. He said, when he said, we're not dead, you're dead. Like there was a hang time. And I was like, we're not dead. We're the ones who, you're dead.
You are.
Oh, shoot. He didn't say it. Why didn't he say it? Okay, I'm wrong, I guess.
I mean, that part was hilarious.
We're the ones who
honestly.
live.
Yes.
Right.
We're the ones that you're dead.
You're dead.
Well, it is a
Okay,
weird
all right.
juxtaposition from going from The Walking Dead to the We Are the Ones Who Live. It's not.
Make like a tree
Kind of
and
uncomfortable.
get the hell out of here.
Oh,
Major
a
General
nice
Beale.
Boondock Saints reference there,
No,
Dave.
that was Back to the Future.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I thought
you're
you were
fine.
censoring yourself.
Not, you'll be okay. They're okay.
Which one of you would have sworn on the sword?
It's complicated, right?
Yeah, I maybe
Because-
would have, but I would have done the Okafor method, like swear on it but forget
Yeah.
it.
Don't let it take.
Yep. I loved that line, and it made so much more sense later. I didn't know he literally requested that you swear on his sword.
He's like, kiss the ring.
So
kiss
it was
it.
kind of, I don't know, it was good.
The sword of sacrifice, though. Because he says it. The most likely outcome is that we die. This is what we're fighting for.
But
This
he's
is who
killing
you are
everyone. So how
for
is he
people
going
to
to die?
live.
He's been doing it since moment one.
Whom, Beale
Yeah.
and Rick?
It's the trolley
He
dilemma.
stopped
though.
for a little
That's
while.
how he views it.
Grew his fleet and bee.
Well, I'm
You have a
not
choice.
joking. I'm being serious.
It's
Yeah.
the,
It's the
that's why I
trolley
said
dilemma.
utilitarian.
That's how
It
he
is the
views
trolley
it
dilemma.
as. He views it as the
Yes.
trolley dilemma.
Utilitarian.
He's like, I'm making the right choice. This is the right choice for the future. You can't be like, this guy's just a bad guy, because he's not.
So I did get in your head.
What do you mean?
This runs in the tension that I was bringing up in
Bro, I thought
episode
this
4.
the whole
He actually-
time. Don't.
No, but you're like,
don't.
but he is doing his. The government is bad.
Don't.
David, you're bad
Don't
for
do
even
this.
bringing it up.
Don't, no.
Just to be serious, though.
No.
Though, I had brought this up in episode 4, and everybody was staring at me very blankly, which I edited out to be kind to
probably
you.
was really zoned out, honestly.
It was probably 11:03 and we were all tired and
Fair.
And you get on one of your tangents, and then mentally you just see it on my face. All of a sudden, I go,
and nobody's like, oh, but yeah, wait.
and we all just go.
He mentions it in this
Yeah.
episode. Crop yields, diseased walkers,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
crop yields versus population.
I thought you were like crop you. I thought that was. I thought because Rachel and I were talking about
Crop you, man.
Rachel and I were talking about zoning out, so I thought you were like, well, crop you, crop you guys.
They basically told us about the echelon briefing in the world beyond because
Yeah.
they were like, it's all about resources. And that's
Uh-huh.
exactly what it
Ish.
was.
That is one of the beefs that I
Ish.
have with this. I do have one issue. There are people online that are like, I don't like the ending of this because it undid the entirety of World Beyond. And I'm like, no, it didn't. That's dumb.
no.
That's
How?
dumb.
No.
They did not
Yeah.
watch the
How
show.
do they think that?
Only Jadis mentions the resources necessarily. Lieutenant Colonel Kublik says it's because they would have become a threat. They had at least most of their manufacturing down in Campus Colony. They were self-sufficient. At the pace they were going, they would have outpaced the CR. So it's not just resources.
Mhm.
It's about competition. See, and that's what makes World Beyond pretty all right because
That's why you should have watched it. And if you didn't, you're a total idiot. There, I said it
but
again.
because they said the thing without saying the thing, and it stuck in our minds, and it floated in there for as long as it needed to stay, like a blood clot that was waiting for the moment to give us an aneurysm, and that was this show, right, Sharon? Well, it bore fruit, is what I'm saying.
In the beginning, it goes through the different things. Like Rick says something, Michonne says something, Okafor says something, Jadis. When you get to Jadis, her quote that they give her is "People are a resource."
People are a resource. Yeah.
So
exactly.
if people are a resource, then why is she able to then convince herself that people are easily disposed? That's very
Also,
frustrating to
I
me.
said back a couple episodes ago, I said people are a resource, and then Dave was like, "That's Negan's philosophy," and I was like, it was kind of this, and so boom,
Did I not agree with you?
bam. No, you didn't actually. You disagreed with me, and then you tried to mansplain me. I'm just
Just like the
kidding.
red in our logo,
I'm just-
she's like never forgetting that.
I'll never forget. This is forever in my mind now. That one time. It's
Very
rare
much.
that I'm right, so I have
I
to
love
really
you so
like-
much, you know that? Like literally.
You're right
You're
a
so
lot.
funny.
I'm not. That's why I stopped making.
You
So I stopped making predictions about the show because I was so
Oh.
outrageously wrong every time.
I'm like wrong.
That's the best
at
kind of
least
prediction, though.
40% of the
Especially
time.
with this show, because that's
I'm
the whole
always
idea
wrong.
is you want it to be. You have no idea
Okay,
what's going to happen.
Rachel, I'm going to go back to something that you said 3 hours ago,
Just to rehash it.
just to bring it up again so we can do another
Yeah.
3 hours. No, you said you had a very specific thing in mind for RJ and Rick. What was it?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh.
Great question.
I'm good
Ooh.
at this. I've been interviewing people,
I'm
Dave.
so
I'm just kidding. I
glad
only
you
interviewed one
asked.
person.
And this is where the episode ends with no trailer. No I'm kidding. It's fine. It's not funny. Actually, I'm
This
so
is the
sorry.
alternate ending of.
I wanted Michonne to formally introduce, to get down next to him and RJ, this is the brave man. This is your dad. Rick, this is your son. I wanted a little bit more meat.
I
between
actually
that
thought that was
meeting.
what was going to happen when she walked
Mhm.
over
Yeah.
to RJ and she's kind of doing the introduction. I thought she was going to say, Rick, this is your son.
Yeah.
I thought it would be
Yeah.
impactful and it would kind of tie it all together if she did. So I agree with you. I did think that was going to happen. It did.
Mhm.
That was also another funny moment for me. I laughed and I don't think I was supposed to at that line because he's like, you're the brave man. And he's like, yeah, but you can call me dad. It wasn't supposed to be funny. I know it wasn't supposed to be funny.
I'll give you guys this.
Rick's line didn't make me mad.
I'll give you
It's
guys this. It's very after school special.
Yeah,
That's okay, because who doesn't love an after school special day?
G.I. Joe. Give him the stick. Don't give him the stick. Give him the stick.
Trevor sandwiches.
I was just going to say that. I'm computer. Stop
computer.
I'm your dad.
I'm your dad. Exactly.
Hey, son.
Peanut butter protein
Anyway.
bars.
Took a corner. But you saying specifically you expected a little more. This is what I'm getting because I felt it too. I expected a little bit more Michonne in that scene, doing some of the wrangling.
Between the two of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's kind of where
I think that's what I was missing.
That's why I was
You putting that
disappointed.
into words hits on even more of like maybe some of the problems with the mechanics. It was just everything was just a little odd. And I say this because it's in contrast to the good camera work and dialogue. And because again, economy of words, making every word mean something or less is more. They even cut out some words from episode 5 when he does the actual marriage proposal and also acceptance thing. What was originally in the script was, will you marry me? Along with the other words, but taking that out actually makes it more beautiful. That's all said.
This is your new dad. You can just call him Uncle Rick.
I also had a moment inside my own brain when I saw Rick embracing Shane's daughter.
Son of a-
Aw.
Not this again.
And of course, it doesn't hurt that they showed a flashback with him killing his best friend
Right.
Shane, which is her father. When Beale was talking about trampling and marching across the countryside, one of the other flashbacks he might have missed, and there were some beforehand when they were showing stock footage of CRM soldiers, those were soldiers that we saw in World Beyond. But when he's talking about trampling across the countryside, you saw in order Alexandria, Tanktown on Fear the Walking Dead. This is season 6. Oh, and season 5, sorry. And then also on the train that was moving across the screen was a Commonwealth soldier. So it was some of season 11 as well. So there's
I did.
all
I
these
missed
different
that last
communities.
bit, but I did see Tanktown.
Which
I did
you
see
can
that.
extrapolate a little bit more from this, meaning, okay, well, maybe there was something to sending Connie to Designation 2. Maybe that was a little of that partnership with maybe the CRM? Maybe?
No.
Sorry, I don't know why my eyes. Okay, all right, fine.
Would they know about Tanktown? Would they know it from Isabel?
Isabel.
No, they watched Fear the Walking Dead.
Would it be
so that's how
because of
they know.
Isabel?
Or an embed. Why not?
Do you think Isabel was one
It's
of the
Al.
upper
If
ups?
it's anyone, it's Al. I'm just kidding.
Which I did when he was talking about the
That
National
would
Guard
be perfect, though.
squaring
She's
off with the
not part of the
forces.
story.
It just brought me back to Al, and I wish she was on this show somehow to tie that all together. It doesn't need to be, but that's like a thing that got passed down from season 5 all the way to this series.
I thought of Al when Beale was talking to Rick about you saw the beginning. And I'm like, so did Al.
With the
Al was right there.
helicopters coming
She
in.
saw
You know
it,
what I thought?
Her
Yeah.
brother
You know what I
was
thought?
the
He
one.
said, you saw what happened in the beginning. I'm like, no, he didn't.
He was in a
He
hospital
was
bed.
literally in a coma.
Yeah.
Althea's brother was the one who saw it
Mhm.
Yeah. You
and sent
liar.
Althea the tape.
No, then I was like, oh, okay, well, he traveled into Atlanta, so he saw the damage, and
Yeah.
Well, everybody
like-
told him that they got
Yeah,
bombed
yeah.
too because I almost said Lane and Shorey. Oh my god. Shane and Lori.
The new power couple.
Lane and Jory.
Those dinks.
Lori and Shane saw it happen, so they could have told.
yeah.
hmm
Do you think the bees turn faster? Because I feel like the group of people that were gassed turned much faster than most.
You think? Bridget, do you want to take this one?
I never
They were
thought
just
about
almost
that.
immediate. They turned.
Maybe the gas turns
Because
them.
it's still during the conversation.
Well-
but they didn't turn that past in with Nat.
Nobody's gonna
It
do
took a
this?
while.
That's interesting.
Nobody's going to do this?
If you're a strong-willed person, would you innately, from like an intrinsic level, fight against the virus?
What, bitch? What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, they were
Would
doing
you fight
experiments.
against being turned?
Yeah, on the A's. They weren't worrying about the B's turning.
No, but
Changing.
what I'm
At the New York lab
facility. Yeah,
they
sure.
were timing how long it was taking for them to turn.
Yeah.
Mhm.
hmm
Barco specifically.
So
Mhm.
maybe they were making the gas make them turn faster so they would have more dead to use against other places.
Well, I kind of figured that's what they were doing.
But they didn't turn as
And
quickly
World
when Nats people were all bombed. Not everyone turned as quickly.
Dave, what you trying to
Okay,
say?
I'll answer the
Same
question,
gas.
guys, because nobody had it. Okay.
Okay.
They dropped the blue one when it was shown in the Nomads
Mhm.
in episode 2. Blue one is the chlorine gas. But the green one,
Oh,
Rachel,
finally we
wait.
talk about the green gas.
But the green one is the Project Votus gas in World Beyond.
That's the death stink.
Yeah.
Well,
No, girl.
We know what Project Votus is, Dave.
Yes,
stink
Project
Why did you
Votus.
say it? Because that was the very gas that kills them and hopefully doesn't make them reanimate.
okay, Dave, they're gonna hate me for this,
But it kills them
I don't
instantly.
know what the project was to gas.
I know, I'm just
Go
being
watch
helped with
World
these
Beyond.
two bitches.
If you watch World Beyond, you
whoa,
would know.
whoa. Hey, back off my Shauna here.
I
I'm
said
just
you guys
saying,
are gonna
White
hate
Knight
me.
just
right
say
now.
go watch it, and then you'd know.
Listen, the Project Votus gas was the effort. This
You're
going
until
to what
Dave
Beale
one
says.
sentence.
This is more than one sentence, Dave.
Enough out of you. Enough out of you, you mean lady.
Lady.
The Project Votus gas is a gas in world. This goes to what Beale says to Rick.
Mhm.
Our scientists still haven't figured this out, and they were desperately trying. But because it failed, they used it to their advantage. The gas itself was supposed to make it so that people don't reanimate. Essentially, when they die, they don't reanimate.
Mhm.
However, it was A, deadly, and B, didn't work. And Bridget argued in a previous episode that perhaps it works faster.
What Dave's trying to say
I
is
was right again.
Are you playing the part of Dave right
I
now?
was right again. Dave admitted it now again.
Well, no, we didn't launch the green gas in episode 2. We launched the blue gas.
Uh-oh.
You
I don't even
stupid
want to
dink.
take the time to argue with you, but I freeze framed that. It was a metal canister. It was not green or blue. It was
blue.
metal.
I showed it
metal.
not only in the published
I don't
episode,
even
but in
care
the
that I
blog.
didn't win.
Dave, it was
Oh,
green
girl.
screened, so it doesn't matter what it was.
What?
Kind of like the
Either way.
The rage is.
Metal.
I'm going to turn into the incredible blue Hulk. Fine, whatever. There is a blue Hulk.
Incredible
It is
Hulk.
When he
terrible.
holds his breath.
It is horrible.
Blue Man Group.
It's like a.
He
Dave
blew himself.
Smash.
It's a galactic Hulk, and it's
He
not.
blew him.
It's disgusting.
Just accidentally blew himself.
We're back to the blue.
At least I got the explanation out before the phone
It's-
came. If you like this whole episode that you heard, head over to ratethispodcast.com/squawking dead. 5 stars and an eggplant is all we need to know that you love us. But tell us what you liked. Tell us what you didn't like. But remember to tell us after every episode, and we might just share it on social media like we have recently. Just check out the stuff we just posted. But say you like it even more than that. Think about following us for free on either Ko-fi or Patreon. That's ko-fi.com/squawking dead or patreon.com/squawking dead. You don't have to buy us a coffee for 30 days of supportive back content on Ko-fi. And you don't have to join a membership tier on either Patreon or Ko-fi to get some of the inside goodies. All we request is following us for free because it's the only way to join our recording sessions, which are also free to attend. We don't post our recording schedules on social media to be with us in the real-time chat. I've been your host, David Cameo, and I'm joined by Cosmon09, Rachel Burt, Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, Bridget, ko-fi.com/Punky Brewster. That's PUNKYBRUYSETER. And of course, Shauna, S_MAEDAYS on Instagram. Thank you for being with us, Shauna. It was really
Thank
nice.
you. It's great to be here.
And
That was fun.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And I'm so
With
glad
that,
to be here
everybody-
because of Robin. I have to shout out once more. Black and White Guy.
For
We
Robin,
love you,
yes.
man. We
Yeah.
love your family.
Miss you, Robin.
Robin made this
We're
possible.
still here for you and praying for you.
He's watching this
Praying
podcast
for
from
your
heaven.
family. Yes. Well, for my
If
for
he's
my
in heaven,
opinion,
he
is.
ain't watching
Thank
this
you.
podcast. Let me tell
That's
you.
right. That's
He's got
right.
much
I don't
better
know.
things
He's
to do.
laughing. He's laughing.
I hope he is honest.
He's
honest to
hoping
God.
we're making his family laugh.
I mean, if your heaven is what you make of
Jesus
it, then maybe
Christ.
his thing is
Yes.
watching us bitch
It
about the
wouldn't be
show.
that.
maybe he's sketching us. He's sketching all of
doubt
us
it.
right now. He
A man
sketched
has
that great
dreams.
screenshot of Bridget when she froze.
Yeah, exactly. I'll say this. Thank you so much for joining us on this rather turbulent experience of a mostly incredible series. Most of us think so, but that's okay. That's what we're here for. We're here to take in all your opinions and input so that it's all hashed out and we can all decide and we can all take in each other's points of view. And hopefully you got something out of this. That's the whole point of this show, that you got something out of this that you wouldn't have otherwise in your own little bubbles. Take care, everybody. We'll see you in the next one, which I don't know what that is. Could be an interview.
Ooh, Dave,
Could be Jackbox.
Jackbox.
Yeah.
No, I haven't played
Maybe.
Jack's
I'm not
Box since
glitching.
I
Is something
played
wrong with your
guys.
eye, Dave?
It's that aneurysm that I mentioned
Do you
earlier.
remember when I used to when I
glitching.
sang this?
See Elmo's fire.
He got it.
The hell is going on?
We're traveling from Texas to Georgia right now.
Come visit me in Florida.
And we're there.
That was perfect.
We're the ones who squawk.